The knife caught the streetlight as it arced through the rain-soaked air. Ami didn't have time to scream. One moment she was backing away from the three shadows closing in on her. The next she was on the ground, something warm and heavy covering her body. Above her, Kangdi's face was twisted in silent agony, his hand pressed against his side where dark blood bloomed through his white shirt like ink spreading across paper. His eyes met hers for just a heartbeat, and in that look was something she couldn't name. Something that made her chest constrict with a feeling worse than fear. Then his weight went slack against her, and the rain kept falling, washing pink rivers across the cracked asphalt. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how the son of Lagos ended up cradled in the arms of Seoul's most dangerous ghost, bleeding out on a forgotten road in the Korean countryside, we need to go back. Back to where their collision began. Back to the night Amara Okoro's glittering world shattered like champagne glass against concrete. Seoul's Shilla Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, all crystal chandeliers and designer gowns. Ami stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows in her burnt orange Ankara dress, her locks swept up in an intricate crown, smiling for the fifth photographer in 10 minutes. This was her element, the flash of cameras, the weight of diamonds at her throat, the knowledge that she was the most photographed woman in the room. "Miss Okoro, one more shot, please." She obliged, angling to show off the hand-beaded patterns cascading down her back. Her phone buzzed. Chitty again. Her fiancé had called 3 times since she'd landed. She'd call him back after the gala. Right now, she needed to be present to remind the world why Amara Okoro was the face of African luxury. She excused herself toward the bathroom, her heels clicking against marble. The corridor was blessedly quiet, the party's roar fading to background noise. She was checking her lipstick when she heard voices, angry voices, speaking Igbo. Her hand froze. "Igbo, here, in Seoul." The voices came from a service corridor, its door slightly ajar. She shouldn't look. Every instinct said walk away. But something in those sharp, urgent tones pulled her forward. She pressed against the wall and peered through the gap. 3 Nigerian men in expensive suits surrounded a 4th man, Korean, kneeling, hands zip-tied behind his back. One of the Nigerians she recognized instantly. Chief Okonkwo. He'd been at her father's house last month, all smiles and elaborate praise. Now his face was carved from stone. "You thought you could skim from us?" Chief Okonkwo's voice was soft, almost gentle. That's what made it terrifying. "Seoul was your territory, all we asked was loyalty." The Korean man was shaking, words tumbling out in broken English mixed with desperate Korean. She caught family and mistake and please. Chief Okonkwo sighed like a disappointed father. Then he nodded. One of his men pulled something from his jacket, a knife with a curved blade. She should run, should go back to the party, smile for cameras, pretend she'd seen nothing. But her legs had turned to stone. She watched, frozen, as the knife flashed once, twice. The Korean man's pleas cut off into a wet gurgle. Chief Okonkwo checked his watch like he'd just wrapped up a boring meeting. That's when her phone rang. Chitty's ringtone, a bright Afrobeats melody, shattered the silence like a grenade. Every head whipped toward her hiding spot, toward her. Ami ran. She kicked off her heels and ran, the Ankara gown bunching around her legs, her heart hammering. Behind her, shouts erupted. Footsteps pounded marble. She burst back into the ballroom, and the sudden explosion of light and sound hit like a physical blow. Faces turned. Cameras swiveled. She was still the son of Lagos, but now the sun was setting fast. "Ami, darling, are you all right?" Someone grabbed her arm. She yanked free, scanning wildly for exits, for safety, for anything. Chief Okonkwo emerged from the corridor, his face smooth and friendly again, but his eyes were hunting. Their gazes locked across the crowded room. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd already decided she was dead. 12 hours later, Ami stood in an underground parking garage staring at a ghost. That was the only word for him. One moment the space between 2 cars was empty, the next a man stood there, watching her with eyes that reflected no light at all. He was tall, lean, all hard angles and old scars mapping violence across bronze skin. He wore faded jeans and a dark jacket, and moved with the absolute economy of someone who'd learned that wasted motion meant death. Everything about him screamed danger. Ami's security team tensed. The man didn't even glance at them. "Miss Okoro," his voice was gravel and smoke. "We're leaving." "Excuse me," Ami crossed her arms. She was wearing Givenchy and Laubautins. She was Amara Okoro, and she didn't get ordered around by men who looked like they'd crawled out of an action movie. "And you are the person keeping you alive." He turned toward a black sedan. "We leave now or you die. Choose." Her security team looked confused. She wanted to tell this man exactly where he could shove his attitude. But she remembered Chief Okonkwo's smile. She remembered the knife. She remembered her father's voice on the phone 6 hours ago. "I'm sending someone who knows how to disappear. Trust him." She followed. The drive took 4 silent, suffocating hours through highways and mountain roads, city lights fading, until there was nothing but darkness and occasional passing villages. The man didn't speak, didn't turn on music, didn't acknowledge her existence except for occasional glances in the rearview mirror. Ami tried breaking the silence. "So what's your name?" "Nothing." "How long have you worked security?" Silence. "Do you always drive like you're being chased?" Not even a flicker. By the time they reached the traditional Korean house sitting alone on a hillside, she was vibrating with frustration. It was beautiful in an austere way, all clean lines and natural wood. It was also completely isolated. "You've got to be kidding me," Ami said as he killed the engine. "This is where I'm supposed to stay, in the middle of nowhere." "Yes." He got out and started unloading bags. "For how long?" 30 days. 30 days. I have commitments. I have Milan Fashion Week next month. I have. "You have people trying to kill you." He set her Louis Vuitton luggage down with zero care. "Inside, now." "Stop ordering me around like I'm some prisoner." She planted her feet. "I don't even know who you are. My father said he was sending professional security, not some." "Some what?" He finally looked at her directly. His eyes were flat, emotionless, but something in them made her step back. "Say it." She wanted to. Wanted to call him exactly what he looked like. A thug, a criminal, someone who had no idea how to deal with important people. But something in his stillness stopped her. It wasn't threat. It was something colder. Complete indifference to whether she lived or died as long as he fulfilled his contract. "Inside," he repeated. This time she went. The house interior was as austere as its exterior. Smooth wooden floors, rice paper doors, minimal furniture. It smelled like cedar and stone. The man moved through the space like he'd memorized every inch, checking windows, testing locks. "Your room," he pointed left. "Stay away from windows. Don't go outside without me. Don't use your phone except the secure line I'll give you. Don't contact anyone." "For 30 days, I'm supposed to just sit here." "Yes." "That's insane." "You'll be alive." He pulled out a new phone, still in packaging. "Your father will call on this every 3 days. No one else has the number." He held out his hand. "Give me your phone." "Absolutely not." "It's tracked. They'll use it to find you." "I'm not giving you my phone. My entire life is on that phone." "Then your entire life will get you killed." His hand didn't waver. "Choose." They stared at each other. Ami felt something hot and sharp building in her chest. She was used to being important, being listened to, being accommodated. This man treated her like an inconvenient package he'd been paid to store. She threw her phone at him. He caught it one-handed without flinching, walked outside, and she watched through the window as he pulled out the battery and SIM card, dropped them on the ground, and crushed everything under his heel. 37,000 followers, gone. Her entire social media presence destroyed. She was alone with a ghost who looked at her like she was already dead. The first 3 days were warfare. Not loud warfare. He didn't raise his voice once. Cold warfare. Silent warfare. Every interaction felt like 2 opposing forces testing boundaries. She tried to go for a walk. He blocked the door. She tried to order delivery. He disconnected the internet. She called her father to complain. Her father told her to stop being dramatic. She threw the phone across the room. The man picked it up without comment and put it back on the table. "You can't keep me prisoner," she said on day 4. "I can." He was preparing rice in the kitchen. "And I will. My father hired you to protect me, not treat me like a criminal. Protection means control. You don't get to make choices that get you killed. I'm not some helpless girl who needs a man to tell her what to do. You're a woman who saw a murder and thinks the rules don't apply because she's famous." He didn't look up. "The syndicate doesn't care about your Instagram followers. They care that you're a witness. Pride won't stop a bullet." The words hit like a slap, not because they were cruel, his tone was neutral, but because they were true. She'd been treating this like an inconvenience, but that man had died. She'd watched him die, and she was next. She left without another word. Day 7, something shifted. Not in him, he remained exactly as cold as before, but in her. She stopped fighting quite so hard, started paying attention to the rhythms of their strange existence. She noticed he never slept more than 4 hours, that he checked the perimeter 3 times every night, that he moved through the house like water. She noticed scars on his hands, the way he held himself like every muscle was coiled and ready. She noticed he ate like someone who'd learned not to expect regular meals. One morning, she found him practicing calligraphy in the early dawn, his brush moving across rice paper with surprising grace. She watched from the doorway, hidden, and saw something in his face she hadn't seen before. Not quite peace, but maybe the memory of it. "What does it say?" she asked. His shoulders tensed, but his hand didn't shake. He set down the brush. "Nothing important." "Let me guess. The foolish woman talks too much." The corner of his mouth might have twitched. "It says, even in darkness, the moon still rises." "That's beautiful." "It's a lie." He stood and started cleaning brushes. "The moon only seems to rise. It's always there. We just can't see it." "Deep for a bodyguard." Something flickered in his eyes, something that might have been pain. "I'm not a bodyguard." "Then what are you?" "Someone who's very good at keeping people alive." He walked past her. The conversation was over. But that night, Ami couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about that phrase, about the way he'd said, "It's a lie," like he was speaking from experience, like he'd spent a long time in darkness waiting for a moon that never came. She found herself in the kitchen at 2 a.m., trying to make tea without burning the house down. She was terrible at this. She'd had staff her entire life. "You'll start a fire." His voice came from behind her. She jumped, tea leaves scattering. "God, do you have to sneak up on people?" "I don't sneak, you're not paying attention." He took over with economical grace. "Can't sleep." "No," she wrapped her arms around herself. "I keep seeing it. That man, the knife, I keep thinking it could have been me." He was quiet, water heated, steam rising. "It wasn't you." "But it could have been, still could be." "It won't be." Something in his voice she hadn't heard before. Not warmth, but certainty, absolute certainty. "I won't let it." "Why?" The question came out smaller than intended. "Why do you care? You don't even like me." He poured tea, set a cup in front of her. "It's not about liking, it's about duty." "Duty?" She laughed without humor. "Is that all I am to you? A duty?" He met her eyes then, and for just a second she saw something beneath the ice. Something almost human. "What else would you be?" She didn't have an answer. She drank her tea in silence while he stood by the window, watching darkness for threats that might never come. Week 2, Ami started trying to crack the ghost. It started as boredom. She began playing music, Afro beats and highlife, sounds of Lagos that made her homesick and strong. He never commented, but she noticed he stopped leaving the room when she played it. She started cooking, badly at first but determined. She called her mother for recipes. She made jollof rice that was both burnt and undercooked. He ate it without complaint. She made soup so salty it was almost inedible. He finished his bowl. "You don't have to eat it," she said, watching him force down another spoonful. "I know it's terrible." "It's not terrible." "You're a terrible liar." "I don't lie," he set down his spoon, "but I've eaten worse." "Where?" The question hung in the air. She expected him to shut down. Instead, he said quietly, "Prison." The word fell like a stone into still water. Ami felt her breath catch. Prison. 5 years. His face was expressionless, but his hands had stopped moving. Got out 6 months ago. What? She stopped, started again. What did you do? What I was told to do. He stood, taking his bowl to the sink. That's enough questions. But Ami's mind was racing. Prison. 5 years. Her father had sent her a convict. Not a professional, a criminal. Everything suddenly made sense. The way he moved, the scars, the absolute comfort with violence, the way he looked at her like she was from another world. Because she was. Did my father know? Her voice came out sharp. Did he know what you were? His back was to her, but she saw his shoulders tense. Yes. And he sent you anyway, a criminal to protect me. A criminal who knows how to keep you alive. He turned, eyes flat again. You think your father's bodyguards could do what I do? They wear suits and follow protocols. The syndicate will kill them in 30 seconds. But me, I know how they think, how they hunt, because I used to be one of them. The room felt too small, too close. Ami stood, chair scraping. I want to call my father. No. That wasn't a request. And this isn't a negotiation. He moved between her and the phone, so fast and silent it reminded her exactly what he was, what he'd been. You're scared, I understand, but your father made the right choice. I'm the only person in Korea who can keep you alive. Because you're one of them. Because I was one of them, there's a difference. Is there? Her voice rose, fear and anger mixing. Once a criminal, always a criminal. She saw it then, just a flash. Something cracking in his expression, something that looked like pain, but it was gone before she could be sure. Think what you want, he said, but you'll stay, you'll follow the rules, and in 20 days you'll be alive to judge me all you want. He walked out. Ami was left alone with her terrible soup and her terrible knowledge. She tried to tell herself it didn't matter, that he was just hired help, but she couldn't stop thinking about that flash of pain. Couldn't stop wondering what 5 years had cost him. But pride is powerful. Pride and fear and the certainty she was right to be angry. So instead of apologizing, Ami spent the next 2 days barely speaking to him. Monosyllables, meals in her room. She treated him like what she'd called him, a criminal beneath her notice. If he cared, he didn't show it. He continued his routines, his perimeter checks, existing like a shadow in her peripheral vision. But something had changed. The small softnesses that had started appearing, the tea, the patience, the morning calligraphy, were gone. He was back to being exactly what he'd been on day 1. A ghost. And Ami told herself that's what she wanted. On day 23, Ami found the file. She wasn't snooping, not exactly. She was looking for matches and opened the wrong drawer in his sparse room. Inside was a manila folder, old and worn. She knew she shouldn't open it, knew it was a violation. But her hands moved before her conscience caught up. Inside were newspaper clippings, all in Korean, but some had been translated by hand. Headlines made her stomach drop. Ghost of Seoul arrested. Syndicate enforcer sentenced to 5 years. And photos. Him younger being led away in handcuffs. His face was different then, harder, colder, but somehow more alive, like prison had hollowed him out. But it was the handwritten letter at the bottom that made her sink onto his bed, legs weak. It was in Korean with an English translation clipped to it, from his sister. Opa, they told me what you did, that you took the sentence for me, that you could have walked away but didn't. I don't understand why you'd throw away your life for mine. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth what they'll do to you in there. But if you're reading this, you survived. You made it out. Please don't waste this second chance. Don't live in the shadow of what you had to become. Find light. Find peace. Find something worth staying alive for. Your life was the price of mine. Don't let that sacrifice mean nothing. 5 years ago, Ami's hands shook. She read it again. Each word was a knife cutting away her anger, her judgment, her certainty. He hadn't been a criminal, or he had been, but only because it was the price of keeping someone he loved safe. He'd walked into hell willingly and carried the weight of it so his sister could be free. And Ami had called him a failure. She was holding the letter when he appeared in the doorway. He didn't look surprised, Didn't look angry, just tired. "You had no right," he said quietly. "I know," her voice cracked. I'm so sorry, I didn't understand." "Now you do." He took the file from her hands, movements gentle despite everything. "Does it change anything?" "Everything," she whispered. "You saved your sister, you gave up everything. And look where it got me, disgraced, working a contract to protect a woman who thinks I'm garbage." He wasn't being cruel, just stating facts. "Your instinct was right. I am a failure. The only thing I ever succeeded at was violence, and even that cost me everything." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw the depth of the wound. "I'm a ghost, Miss Okoro. That's all I'll ever be. When this is over, you'll go back to your glittering life, and I'll go back to the shipyards. That's how this ends." "What if it doesn't have to?" "It does." He turned to leave. "Stay in your room tonight. I'm doing a full perimeter sweep." "Wait." "Stay in your room." He was gone. Ami sat surrounded by evidence of his sacrifice, feeling something crack open in her chest. Not attraction, not yet, but recognition. She recognized the weight he carried because she carried one too. Hers was lighter expectations, always being on display, never being less than perfect, but still a weight. Suddenly the ghost didn't seem so different from the sun. They were both performing, both hiding, both imprisoned by who they'd been forced to become. She needed to tell him, needed him to understand she saw him now, really saw him. She waited 2 hours for him to return, then 3. The house was too quiet. She went to the kitchen thinking she'd make tea, ambush him with an apology when he returned. But something felt wrong. The air felt different, heavier. The front door was slightly ajar. He never left doors open. Never. Ami's heart started hammering. She backed toward her room, remembering his instructions. Stay inside. Don't go out. The window exploded inward. Glass rained down as 2 figures in black poured through the shattered frame, moving with professional precision. Ami screamed and ran, bare feet skidding on wooden floor. She made it 3 steps before a hand locked around her arm, yanking her backward. She fought, scratching and kicking, but the man was twice her size and knew exactly what he was doing. He dragged her toward the door, while his partner blocked escape routes. "Kangdili," she screamed his name like a prayer. "Kangdili." "Your ghost isn't coming," the man holding her said in accented English. His breath smelled like cigarettes and worse. "He's busy bleeding out in the forest. You're alone." Terror crashed over her. They'd gotten him. While checking the perimeter, they'd gotten him. She thought of his tired eyes, his quiet certainty he'd keep her safe. She thought about his sister's letter, about sacrifice, about how he'd already given up everything once and now he was going to die for her too. No, she wouldn't let that happen. She went limp, sudden dead weight. He wasn't expecting it, grip loosening just enough. Ami drove her elbow backward into his stomach, twisted and ran, not for safety, for the door, for the forest, for him. She made it outside before they caught her. The night was moonless, the forest a wall of darkness. She was screaming his name, running blind, when the second man tackled her from behind. They went down hard on gravel, pain exploding through her shoulder. He flipped her over. She saw the knife. "Should have stayed in Lagos, Princess," he said. The blade started its arc downward. Then he was there. Kangdi hit the man like a freight train, moving so fast he seemed to materialize from darkness itself. The man went flying. Kangdi rolled to his feet between Ami and her attackers, stance wide and balanced. She could see blood on his shirt, dark and spreading. He'd been hurt. They'd hurt him, and he'd still come. "Run," he said to her, voice steady despite the blood. "Back to the house. Lock yourself in the bathroom, now." But she couldn't move. Could only watch as the 2 men circled him, professionals recognizing another professional. The one with the knife fainted left. Kangdi didn't fall for it. He moved like water, redirecting, using momentum against them. But he was hurt, slower than he should be, and the second man got inside his guard. Ami saw the gun. "Kangdili," she screamed the warning, but he'd already seen it. He pivoted fast, but not fast enough. Shot shattered the night. and Kangdi stumbled backward, his hand pressed to his chest, dark blood spreading between his fingers. Their eyes met across the darkness. In that look was everything, his certainty that he'd failed, her terror that she was losing him, and something else. Something neither of them had words for yet. He went down to one knee, then collapsed. The men turned toward her, and Ami realized with crystal clarity that she was about to die. That he'd sacrificed everything again, and it still wasn't enough. Then sirens split the night. Blue and red lights strobed through the trees. The men hesitated, looked at each other, then melted back into the forest like shadows. Ami crawled to Kangdi's side, her hands finding the wound, pressing down, trying to stop the blood that kept coming. His eyes were open but unfocused. "Stay with me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, you don't get to die, not for me, not like this." His lips moved. She leaned closer. "Moon," he breathed. "You're the moon." Then his eyes closed, and she was screaming for help, screaming for someone to save the man who'd saved her, screaming because she'd finally seen him and now he might be gone. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics pulled her away. She watched them work on him, watched them load him onto a stretcher, watched the doors close between them. And she realized, standing there covered in his blood, that somewhere in the past 23 days, the son had fallen in love with the ghost. Thank you for watching. Will Kangdi survive? What will happen when Ami finally tells him how she feels? And who called the police at exactly the right moment? Was it coincidence or is someone else watching them? Find out in episode 2. If you're new here, we'd love to know you better, so leave us a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Who knows, our next story might come from your home country. If you enjoyed this video, take a moment to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss our next release. See you soon.